Things are a little bit cold right now in Cowboys Nation. We're on the outside of the playoff picture looking in, and Dallas, off of their recent embarrassing Thanksgiving Day loss to the Washington Redskins, we're sitting at 5-6 in the middle of a bunch of teams that aren't very good. Some of them have potential, some of them don't. And if you look at things that way, you can say that, hey, Dallas has as much of a shot as anybody else in order to do something with their season and go on a stretch run. But in all honesty, this team is just way too injured to actually consider themselves to be any kind of contenders for either a wild card spot or for the NFC East division. This is KD Drummond of bloggingtheboys.com, and I'm here to break down for you the playoff scenarios that are looking at the Dallas Cowboys in the face and saying, you're not good enough. You can see by my gear right now that it really is a cold day for the Dallas Cowboys. So I got my pea coat on, I got my fancy hat, I got my scarf to make sure that I stay warm and I don't lose my throat yelling at the TV over the Cowboys' ineptitude in the first halves of the games. We're not going to tackle that right now, but what we are going to look at is all of the teams surrounding Dallas in the standings and seeing if there is a way, a path of some sort to get us out of the cold and into the warmth of the playoff picture where anything can happen, as witnessed by the last two Super Bowl champions, the Green Bay Packers of 2010 and the New York Giants of 2011. Now, we'll start with the Giants, because obviously the closest or the easiest path to get into the playoffs would be an NFC East Division Championship. Everybody thought that the Giants were faltering up until they went on their bye week, and then we saw them explode out the gate against the Green Bay Packers in the first 2 minutes of the game, and they really never looked back in a 38-10 drubbing. So the Giants are sitting at 7-4 right now, and while things would look on the up and up for them, they have a really daunting schedule ahead of them. They play Washington this week, then they play at home versus New Orleans, and they go at Atlanta and at Baltimore before ending up with Philly to finalize their season. So even though the Giants are sitting at 7-4 and they look great, it's not out of the question to see the Giants end up at 9-7. And if that makes the case, Dallas getting to 9-7, which will be the crux of any of these arguments that we're saying. Obviously, nobody thinks an 8-8 team is going to get there, but if Dallas can somehow find a way to go 4-1 down the stretch, then some things are in play. This tiebreaker scenario obviously goes head-to-head first and then record within the division. You could probably say for Dallas to get to 9-7 and for the Giants to fall to 9-7, 4-2 would probably be the division record for each, so that would be a wash. Then you're going to look at games against common opponents, which is actually the tiebreaker before you get to saying record against teams within your own conference. And in that scenario, since Giants have already lost to Pittsburgh and Cincinnati, you could actually see a scenario where Dallas would end up having a better record against the common opponents before you even get to a conference record. So a 9-7, 9-7 tie at top the division with the Giants could easily see Dallas ending up being the NFC East champions. So it gets a little warmer when you start to look at things that way. And you might be able to take off a hat, or maybe even a scarf or two when you look at the fact that the Redskins also have a tough record, and for them going 4-1, that might not really be in the cards, even though RG3 is playing sensational. So you're feeling a little bit warmer right now when you start to look at those records. Well, let's just say for a chance that Dallas can't catch the Giants. The Giants end up being 10-6, so Dallas ends up at 9-7, and they're looking for a wild card berth. That's when you start to look at the teams that they're faced up against. Now, could Seattle, who Dallas lost to in week 2 of the season, could they make it all the way to 9-7 for the season? It's possible, but they just got their two prime corners, Browner and the other guy, I'm forgetting his name, the guy that wants to talk trash to everybody, Richard Sherman. They just got both of those guys suspended for Adderall, supposedly. So their road is a lot tougher because their cornerbacks actually make that team. You always have the debate of pressure versus pass coverage, but for Seattle, the pass coverage dictates the time that it gives the pass rush to actually get to the quarterback. So losing them is big. Seattle is 1-5 on the road, and they still do have a couple road games remaining. You could easily see them losing at Chicago and then to San Francisco later in the year, and then they would just need one more loss out of Arizona, at Buffalo, and St. Louis to end up 8-8 and on the outside looking in. So you start to get a little bit warmer there. Another team that Dallas is chasing, Tampa Bay, is at 6-5. Dallas already owns a head-to-head tiebreaker against them. So we're looking at Tampa just needing to finish 9-7 for us to be able to, outpace them to get the wild card spot. they would need to win 2 out of 3 road games in order to avoid 9-7 being the best they can do. And they play at Denver, at New Orleans, and at Atlanta. So you could easily see a scenario where Tampa is sitting there and looking at an 8-8 record or a 9-7 record, and Dallas being able to sneak past them. So this is getting a little bit warmer. Minnesota's the 3rd team that's at 6-5. They can forget about it. At 6-5, they have at Green Bay versus Chicago, at St. Louis, at Houston versus Green Bay to end their season. They're going to be fortunate if they can even finish at 8-8 on the season. So Minnesota, although they started nice, they have a quarterback who doesn't even throw 15 yards down the field with any high success rate. So I'm pretty much penciling them out of the playoff scenario, even though they're ahead of Dallas right now. It's about time for us to change hats, because it's not that cold anymore, is it? It's getting a little warm. Getting a little warm, isn't it? Yeah. So now that leaves Washington, who has an interesting schedule. As we discussed earlier, you know, they could easily be 4-1 or 1-4 down the stretch. Obviously, they play a lot of common opponents. We play them to end the season, but you could easily see a scenario where Washington is either 8-7 or 9-6 to end the season going into that last game, where anything is possible. The Cowboys could be playing for either the wild card berth or NFC East championship scenario. So Washington right now with their schedule, you just never know what you're going to get with them. So we're going to keep that in the bank. They play the Giants and they play Baltimore. Then they have road contests against Cleveland and at Philly. Is Michael Vick back for that game? Is LaShawn McCoy back for that game? You just don't know what Philly's going to do, even though they obviously look like they have problems. But if you put those 2 big cogs back in their offense, Philly's still capable of beating anybody. So Washington, we're going to throw them into the ring, but I could actually see them finishing maybe 3-2 over this home stretch. If Dallas is able to get their win, that would put them at 8-8 for the season. And again, Dallas is feeling more comfortable. Now, the final team you have to worry about when it comes to the wild card is the New Orleans Saints, who dug themselves into an early hole at 0-4, but they stormed back up until their loss against San Francisco. Now they're sitting at 5-6. But they have to go at Atlanta, at the New York Giants, versus Tampa Bay, then home against Dallas before they end their season against Carolina. So even though they fought back and they're obviously the best offense of all the contenders, they obviously have the toughest schedule before they end the season against Carolina. But for all intents and purposes, New Orleans is looking at another 8-8 team. So that brings you to Dallas, who has, we play Philly, we play Pittsburgh, we play Philly, we play Cincinnati, then we play Pittsburgh, who most likely will have all of their stars back by that point, since Ben Roethlisberger is going to be back, it looks like, next week to face their rematch against the Baltimore Ravens. But then we have the game against New Orleans, in New Orleans, and then we have Washington. So it's not out of the question for Dallas to end up going 4-1, but it will be daunting. But the way everybody else in the NFC is shaping up, even with all the injuries that Dallas have, which, you know, we won't even get into right now, because that really will be the determining factor if they can even sniff going, getting 2 wins in a row now and then losing to Pittsburgh and then getting 2 wins to end the season and sneaking in at 9-7. But, hey, for now, I'm blowing sunshine, bruh, and that's how it's looking. This is KD Drummond of Blogging the Boys with your sneak peek at the playoff scenario as it stands right now for the 5-6 Dallas Cowboys. It ain't over until it's over. And the last time I checked was that the fat lady was looking for some Ricola because their throat's a little scratchy. It's not over, folks. Have some faith. You never know what's going to happen. Salute.